Welcome back to Combust Astrology. This is episode 7 of the podcast. It's nice to hear from you guys, or actually, it's nice to be doing this again. I'm sure you're listening. So, I'm going to be covering what I'm calling the winter arc of 2025. And the winter arc is essentially the retrogrades in their, I want to say, metaphorical sense. So first and foremost about the retrogrades, Jupiter is retrograding from October 9th all the way through the 4th of February of 2026. Saturn will retrograde June the 29th through November 15th. Uranus will be retrograding August 24th through January 26th of 2026. Neptune is going to retrograde June 30th through December 6th, and then Pluto retrograded from April 27th through October 7th. So that one's already direct, and it will retrograde again every couple of months. But Saturn and Uranus, as they retrograde, even though they're going to go direct, they're going to be going direct out of the sign that they're in. So Saturn won't be direct in Aries. It's going to go all the way back to Pisces, and Uranus will go back into Taurus. Neptune, same thing. Once it's direct, it will be in Pisces. Jupiter is the only thing, and Pluto is the only thing, or both of them are the only things that are going to stay in their own signs. So that's why I'm covering this as a winter arc. Specifically from, I want to say, October now till March of next year. That's the time frame that I'm kind of giving it. And a big reason for that is most of the things will already have gone direct by that time, and or have changed into the sign that they have to be. So the only thing that's an exception is probably just Uranus. It won't be in that new sign until later. But let's talk about this year so you can fully understand what I mean by the winter arc. So this year we had a lot of changes. Mars retrograded and it had its shadow between Cancer and Leo. Venus retrograded in Aries and Pisces. Aries eclipse series. We had Neptune entering Aries, Saturn entering Aries, Saturn, Neptune conjuncting in Aries, Jupiter entering Cancer, Uranus entering Gemini, and the Virgo Pisces eclipse series fully beginning itself. And one of the bigger things with that, and also just want to say the information that I'm getting to basically give you, I always like using the calendars given by the astrology podcasts. I think they're in collaboration, or maybe they work together, I don't know. But it's called Honeycomb, and it is a website that you can essentially go to and have your own astrological calendar printed out. It's called the Honeycomb Collective, and their resources for the some of the stuff I'm using are free, actually. The calendars that they have on their site, you can kind of like purchase for the year to see your own transits. It's really cool, personally. I think it's worth the $30. I will be getting one for the year, and I'm taking a look at that. Just wanted to plug that in because, people deserve their own reparations when it comes to stuff like that. But back to the main point and topic. Looking at this year, it's been a lot. And ever since the end of really November of 2024, when Pluto moved into Aquarius, a lot has changed, as we can see from the political climate and the atmosphere and how that's affected all of us. Going to just dive in, I think the eclipse season of Aries, the final one, and really from I want to say the moment Venus entered Aries in February and spanning all the way till the end of May, we had the Venus retrogrades, the Venus going direct, the Mercury retrograde, Mercury going direct at the same time of Neptune moving into Aries. All of that time between March through May was about truly getting the retribution that you need. And when I say that you need, it's not always something that you want. And it can be something sometimes that's very uncomfortable, but that period of time really brought you, right? The end of all of that stellium of Pisces probably illuminated or drew you into a fantasy. And if you're someone that has mutable placements, it really got you to a point where something was like apparent, or you fell in love with something that you feel like you needed, especially as the nodes went from Pisces directly into it went from Aries and Libra directly into Pisces, right? So we're starting that whole cycle in of itself there as well. Whole lot of stuff. Jupiter stationing direct around February 4th, leading up to that as well. And then the Mars whole cycle of going between Cancer and Leo, it was really highlighting how you shine upon yourself and the love you give yourself. And that's been happening since like the middle of last year in a way. So this whole period has been about making yourself a better person, but it's taking the medicine that maybe you don't want to actually like take in, right? Like you don't want to drink it or eat it or whatever it is. It just doesn't taste good. And if you're someone that has Virgo, Gemini, Pisces, or Sagittarius, you have definitely been tasting that medicine since Saturn went into Pisces back in the end of 2023, right? It's been showing you a part of yourself. For instance, if you have Virgo Venus, Saturn opposing your Venus is showing you your dating habits, your values, and the way that you look to be with people instead of probably just feeling them. You're trying to organize how they should be. Versus Venus and Sag, actually committing and staying true to one person and not spiraling, right? Because the luck runs out, or the Venus there is like, I feel like anything I do is not enough. You get a sense of burnout, right? If you have a Mars in Gemini, this may have like slowed it down or maybe even ramped it up to a point where like you're feeling everything. And so you really have to tune everything out, right? You're doing a lot of things in this period of time. And I look at the Saturn, the eclipse season of Pisces, the Neptune, and I think it all comes together, especially with the nodes north and south in Pisces as well. It's like a release, right? As someone that has Virgo, I have learned a lot about myself through the eclipses and my own personal habits of who I think I am, and to quite literally find a sense of a mirror in my own life from people that I love, and also from the experiences I've gone through. The Saturn and Pisces transit has definitely humbled me. So I can say that on a first-hand account, but then also getting readings with clients that have Pisces or Virgo risings and seeing how they physically affected them. I remember I had one friend who had a stellium in Virgo, and she was getting sick constantly, but her sickness relied directly on the amount of stress correlated with her workplace, because her 10th house was Gemini. So she was catching COVID a lot. And I was like, what if you quit? And it was just like a world shattering idea, because her chart was very heavily centered around that 10th house outside of the Virgo. And when she did, she literally stopped getting sick. And it was in that sort of way. The Saturn and Pisces in the 7th was like, stop extending yourself to healing so many different people and helping so many different people, so that you can rest, so that you can recoup, right? And so people that have Virgo risings, it doesn't surprise me when they tell me that, you know, they can't find work or they can't find a sense of home, because it's such a personal transit, because Saturn going through that 7th house opposing Virgo, or let's say Saturn going through the 4th house, sorry, not the 4th, for Sagittarius risings, for instance, Saturn going through their no, it is the 4th. Sorry, I'm blanking out. It's kind of teaching them to learn to stay home, right? And learn to not do a lot, but it's affecting the cardinal axis of 1, 4, 7, and 10, right? It's a lot. The Saturn period taught people a lot, and it overlays it. I think it overshadows the 2025 period of time, right? As Pluto enters Aquarius, that's the grandfather clock, then Neptune, Uranus, and then Saturn and Jupiter come in, and they really try to do their own sense of acquisition in 2.5 periods of time and 1 year at a time. So when we come back to 2025, you realize this is a giant context. Everything builds onto itself, but this has been a giant context for a while. And I think it's really cool. Personally, I think it's all really cool how it comes together, and it's all really amazingly done. When I think about looking at April, for me, that was a big part of my life because April really wrecked a lot of stuff, both in 2024 with the stellium and Pluto with my chart. But then this new Aries energy of Neptune and Saturn together was definitely a big change. When I look at astrology and I look at my past, I definitely think Uranus moving through Aries and Jupiter moving through Aries have definitely had a big impact. But nothing has had as much as this because Pluto is no longer where it was in Capricorn, right? So the hegemony is fading, is a way I want to kind of say it, right? And you could take that to a mundane astrology point of view. You can take that to whatever point of view helps you, right? But I really think that it very much so was just the release of that era, right? Because Pluto and Aquarius, with all of this fire, they sextile, and fire and air are just like free. They refuse to be restrained. They refuse to be held back. And so all this energy together is just like, we just have to go. It's like lightning and thunder. And then it doesn't help that currently the political atmosphere is very volatile with beliefs and ideals. And then, of course, we have Uranus leaving Taurus into Gemini to add on to this whole idea of, well, a lot is going on. Quite a bit is going on, actually. It's not exactly easy for people. And I don't think it will get easier sooner than it can probably get harder. And one of the bigger things with that conversation is just passivity through Pluto and Capricorn makes it so it feels as though if you say X and Y and Z are happening right now, it's such a shame. Let me go back to my regular job. Let me go back to my everyday, my family. I'm not inciting the desire for rebellion, but the changing of times is never smooth, and it's always a gray area. That's definitely what I've been shown. So it's something that it can't be away from your face, because the whole idea of Neptune and Pisces was social media. It was the escapism from what is clearly in front of you, right? Now, coming back from that and going into the idea of where we are now, it's like the time. It's like it's the execution, because Neptune in Aries is like we go, right? We lead, and Saturn in Aries is like patience, but we're still grinding towards that, right? And I think that as Saturn keeps going through Aries, it will get less and less patient. I think the late degrees of Saturn in Aries are definitely not going to be patient. I know it's leading into Taurus, but the late degree of Saturn in Aries will be holding Jupiter, because the last decant of Aries is Sagittarius, right? So it's probably going to expand to a point where it like explodes, and then you get Taurus, which is like the aftermath, right? The slow and steady after. But the winter arc comes from this whole idea of seeing how this year has been stacking upon itself consistently, and just being there and growing and blooming and showing itself in a multitude of different ways. That's what I think it is. I definitely see this period of time as a going away, a licking your wounds. And I think the winter arc started around the new moon in Virgo with the eclipse season. I believe it was in September 21st. I think that's really where we would see this come into play and become a part of that season. And why do I say this? A big part of that is just because leaving the the Mercury retrograde in Leo around July and August, you get a really big sense of how your perception of yourself is, it's needing to be cleansed. I'm trying to think about how to say it, because in my mind, I'm like, I look at the Aries transits and I'm like, stand up, like that meme, stand up. with that girl that was saying that about whatever the context was. I think it was like relationships, but it's like stand up. And that was in between July and August. And that standing up, it was the last thing, right? All these transits stacked upon each other. Like, I really love this honeycomb chart, because when I look at it, it really does show how everything is, right? It's all together. It's beautiful layers. It's interlaced. You have the regular stuff that is happening, and then you got the real stuff that's happening, and then you have the grandfather clock all the way at the top, which is Pluto, and it's just beautiful. It really shows that in this universe, everything is always happening all at once, and you're not crazy if you're feeling some aspects of it and some not so much. So after that Mercury transit and standing up for yourself at the tail end of the retrogrades of Saturn and Neptune, coming into fall, having Mars going into Scorpio on the 22nd of September, and then what will be an astounding Scorpio season that's going to reveal a lot. And then what will follow that with another Mercury retrograde of Sagittarius and Scorpio from November 9th through November 29th. You are trying to lick your wounds and see yourself better, because that has been the theme of Jupiter going from Gemini to Cancer, trining the late degrees of what will be the retrogrades of Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. The standing up, brushing yourself off and making yourself anew, seeing a new version of yourself and being okay with that version, I think is like really important. You don't want to you really don't want to let what has happened define who you have to be in this future moving forward. And this year is definitely it's like the best time to transit out of that gray area. It's nothing's black and white, but moving from the person that you were into a new version of yourself. And it's painful. And I think it's very evident because the cardinals and the mutables are both being like subjugated to a lot of change in like the energy of astrology, right? So it's not a walk in the park. It's not a simple thing, but it's necessary. All of you has to change. It's necessary. And if you don't, then you're going to be feeling it next year in 2026, and I'll have a video for that. You're really going to wish that you had let everything go now. From 2023 till the end of this year, I think that was your transition. It's not as if you had to, and if you don't feel like anything in your life has drastically changed, that could just be because you've made the change incrementally. You can be ahead of a transit, or maybe you just don't have a clue. In that case, book a reading. But either way, the change is coming, and it's required that you've been doing it because it will set into effect once all of these outer planets move. And so that new moon and the eclipse season that we had of that, it tells you to get your shit together. Virgo is so get your shit together. The September version of that full moon was like, hey, this is where shit clearly is silly. And, in current society, there has been a person that has taken the image of that mass, I'm going to say psychosis for a little bit. But I'm not even getting into that politically or anything, but a giant following, a religious movement. And there will be more of that as times go on, because with the Aries energy and the eclipse energy together, and then also when the nodes switch over from Pisces into Leo and Aquarius, it's going to be teams. And whether or not the teams have to be, from a political perspective or religious perspective, there will be teams. Teams won't be able to be ignored. And, you cannot... You cannot avoid the teams. You can probably sit on the sidelines, but you can't act like there aren't any teams. And so going into that, this is the time where you make that plan for yourself in that way, right? Are you going to be in it or out? Like, I don't want to advocate for picking a side, but I definitely want to say that, like, this is a turning point in history. And so this winter arc is sitting and looking at that. If you intend to interact at the macro scale of what's going on in this life, or if you decide, and even if, for instance, you've gotten a reading with me and you're like, well, you said not to engage. Yeah, because that's your personal transit. It's probably not for you to engage. But if it feels like you are called to be a part of this, then this is the time where you plan. If you feel like you're not called to be a part of what's going on, then this is the time that you make your escape plan, because you don't want to be caught in a battlefield if you're not on a side, and you don't intend to be, right? So now, getting that out of the way, we can finally dive into the winter arc and what I really want to say about it. I've talked about how the winter arc is basically all of the retrogrades. I've talked about the past and everything. And so now the point of importance is Neptune and Saturn, both back in Pisces. After everything that we've gone through, the question is, what did you learn? If you have anything in the late degrees, maybe 20 and after of Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, what did you learn from the moment that Saturn entered Pisces in October of 2023? And look at yourself now, and look at yourself at how much you've evolved, and really pat yourself on the back. Even if you have early degrees, or even if you don't have these like placements, you still have the house. So it's gone through the house. And if you don't know your house because you don't know your birth time, as long as you have a planet in those, you'll know how it affected you. Or as long as you have a planet, which you most likely do, that squares the mutables or it trines, you will know that it affected you. And you could delegate how that came about for you. I want you to really sit with that. That is the point of these last 2.5 months of this year going on into February and March of next year, 2026. Sit with that for yourself, because even though Pluto's direct, right, that's always going to be a thing. We entered that hellscape or paradise, depending on how you look at it, since November of 2024, right? Now all that's left, especially going through Scorpio season and then the rest of the seasons, is what did this feel like? And there's no better time for this to kind of be happening, because Jupiter being retrograde and then going to be direct while these planets are transitioning back in is like sitting in a lukewarm sort of hot tub. Like, it was hot and then it was cold to get hot, and then it was hot and then it got a little bit cold, and maybe you turned it a little bit back up and you found the sweet spot. But it's like you found the sweet spot when you got 20 minutes left to enjoy the hot tub. So you're kind of just like, I'm here, and just breathe through that and sit and think about it, right? And I think this transit hits everyone the most, but I'm going to equate Virgo placements having the most because of the fact that Saturn and Pisces, Neptune, and all of that, and the eclipse seasons is about Virgo and Pisces. And Virgo is the one that's getting slammed between the South Node in Virgo, the Saturn opposing Virgo, and then the Neptune opposing Virgo, right? And that's why I think that you guys, mostly out of all this, really should just relax and enjoy this. It's like a sunset. It's like the last decant of Scorpio. It's truly just enjoying it to its core. And you guys need that. You guys have been through a lot. It's not a walk in the park. As a Virgo myself, it's not a walk in the park. You are a completely different person, right? And a lot of it came through pain. And a lot of it came through just having the acceptance to realize that you cannot be perfect. You cannot be impartial to being critiqued. You cannot avoid what is uncomfortable. And you have to let go of trying to get everything from the start. You have to let go of trying to do everything by yourself. And a lot of you, I know some people who have Chiron and Virgos, and we've spoken a lot. And that this has been like a point in time for them where they've experienced quite a bit, right? People that have, heavy Virgo, Jupiter, maybe Pluto, it's been a very humbling time. Because that generation were picking up after the baby boomers from the war, and they just had, not from the war, from the most amazing period of time that was Pluto and Cancer that had the war. And so they're just like, what do I even do? They were raised on taking care of everyone else but themselves, and now they're left alone to actually address themselves. Right? People that have a lot of Pisces placements coming to realize that their fantasy isn't real, or what was ended quite a bit of time ago, and they just never, ever let that go. And that's okay. That's a part of this process. In this life, things come and go, and the biggest thing you can do is enjoy the process and the moment of what it is. I do think, though, that some things can last longer than others, and I mean quite a bit of time. But you have to make the effort yourself. You have to actually sit there and say, I want this to work. I want to achieve this. I want to get to this point in my life of peace, serenity, success. But it is within that process being able to die and let go every single instance that you keep going through it. While we have these retrogrades between Saturn and Neptune, I want to segue over to all of the fixed signs. All right, because you guys are next up on the chopping block. Uranus has been in Taurus for quite a bit. So Uranus in Taurus is squared Leo placements, it's squared Aquarius placements, and it's opposed Scorpio. Now for the Scorpios, if you have last degrees of Scorpio or Taurus, or, obviously for the other two fixed signs as well, realize that, you're going to have some of the Pisces stuff sextile you, and then also the Taurus stuff oppose you, and it's very nostalgic. It's very heavy feeling, and it's like one last go about to make sure you realize you cannot go back to this. And for you guys, this has been a longer little thing, because I think when the nodes went through Scorpio and Taurus, for a lot of you that I've done readings for, I've seen that you've been affected quite a bit, right? And that's understandable, right? It's not been a fun time, but you guys are transitioning away from an identity, right? Especially for the people that have Taurus in their sun or Venus or Mercury or rising, like there is an identity part of you that is no longer there. And when Uranus goes into Gemini, you're going to kind of lick those wounds, and also you're going to enjoy a different energy, right? And if you've been someone that you've been born into Pluto and Capricorn, you don't really fully understand your Taurus placement, because Pluto in Capricorn aspects that. Like you don't fully know, right? It's not to disapprove your experience in this life, but you really don't fully have a connection with it because it hasn't been single, right? It hasn't been to yourself. It's like the same idea of like, and if you've been married since you were like 20, like don't come at me sideways for this, but for people that have dated, you realize that you don't know what you like or don't like until you've dated. And so it's really important to at least try to see what resonates with you. Maybe you have a chart that you just know off the bat. That's fine. But you don't know until you're single, right? And it's the same thing when I look at these planets. You don't know how they feel with your chart until they're not aspecting something. And you might never fully know because, something else could aspect that with a sextile or a trine or an opposition. But the sign on its own, the energy on its own, right? And if you're born into a transit that's heavy like a Pluto or Neptune or Uranus, then it's always having a camouflage on your true persona, your personality. And so, for instance, Neptune moving away and Saturn moving away is a big thing. Well, Saturn not so much, but Neptune moving away is big for Virgo people. Like, you don't even know yourself like that, right? Neptune moving away from Pisces could completely change your fashion sense because Neptune is media and it's the way you present yourself and it's consumption. And it's like, dang, I actually don't like dressing like this. Let me try something else. Uranus and Taurus for Taurus rising may have completely changed their personality. And they're like, do I like the way I've become? Can I revert back to some things and keep some things? But that Uranus and Taurus made sure that the Taurus didn't stay the same, because that's what Taurus is going to do. It's going to want to stay the same. It's not going to want to change. But that changed it, right? You have to consider this for yourself. And for the fixed signs, for Aquarius and Leo, the reason why I say that you're also coming into that next region, it's because and the Pluto and Aquarius squaring the Taurus and the Scorpio, people kind of get this because you have to change, especially if Pluto and Aquarius is squaring a sun or any other aspect. Sun or moon are big, but there is a big part of you that is being redone. So when Leo and Aquarius have both the North and South node there, and then also Jupiter goes into Leo, that's where I think the collective are going to have sides, especially because the pride and the hubris of what you believe come into play. It's going to be a whole lot of fire energy. Once again, coming back to it, you're next, right? You're going to be the spotlight. So you really want to make sure that, given that you're the spotlight, you can sit with that. Are you fully okay with yourself? Meaning, after all of the Leo retrogrades that have been happening to you for people that have Leo placements, are you okay with yourself? Venus and Mars retrograde every so often, but I feel like for the Leo people specifically, ever since the Venus retrograde in Leo, you guys have been having your own personal little side quest cycle. Venus retrograding in Leo when it was like 2022 or 2023 or whatever, and then the Mars retrograding the past year, the Mercury retrograding this year, and then now you're about to hop into the North and South node with all these fiery planets and Jupiter, right? It's like a bubbling effect for you guys. I'll cover that in the future as well, but I really wanted to talk about this. This winter arc is just chilling, just relaxing. It's not as if there isn't going to be conflict around the world, but I really feel like the winter arc is going to be like, let's just relax and get away. And from now, really from September 21st, you should be planning the next year, because the next year is going to be like a continuous year, meaning it's going to seep into 2027, right? Using the Gregorian calendar and all that is cool and all, there's nothing wrong with that. I obviously think that, the seasons and whatever are split into that because it's divisible. You get your quarters and your equinoxes. I don't think it's bad. However, I feel like your own solar chart should be what you focus the most. And then after that, you should follow major transits and how they happen and how you structure yourself. And, time is relative, I guess you could say, but this year end and then the start of the next year really is like 2 years conjoined in that way. Humanity is going to be given a mirror, and it can choose whether or not it wants to evolve next year and moving forward, or if it's just going to stay the same. And with all that going on, I feel like your biggest achievement is to figure out what's going on for yourself. So, with all that being said, my name's Liv from Combust Astrology. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh, wait. I'm not done. Actually, hold on. This is just some updates. Okay. So as per usual, I'm never ending changing. I am rebuilding my website to be more, user-friendly. Oh my gosh, there's a quote. I was about to say the quote by Octavia Butler about change. Let me actually pull it up because I love it. I love her quote. Her books are amazing. They force you to think. Okay. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. From her novel, Parable of the Sower. And at the end of that, she said, God is change. So I am a person that has a lot of mutables. And I believe very sternly in the idea of committing to 3 things, like a triangle. And one is your own emotional well-being, your physical well-being, and your mental well-being. But in the activities that you do as well, right? The partnerships that you create. But even in your own life, as you get older, I feel as though you should constantly look for change. Keep an overall broad umbrella of something and then change within it. Not that, if you're running a business and you're selling, toilet paper, I'm not saying get into gaming content of toilet paper or some crazy thing like that, but you have to be able to not let yourself get stuck. Because if you do, you will age. Maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe your chart supports it. My perspective as someone with mutable placements, change is good. So, with that being said, I'm changing my website to be more, easy to read, navigate. I am changing my TikTok to be a lot more light with my content. A lot of it was kind of professional. I don't think I'll be doing that anymore. After speaking with my wife about some advice, I've come to that conclusion. For YouTube, I am still on the fence about that. I really want to make long-term stuff covering every single placement and aspect, and I think I will do that. Maybe I'll just sprinkle it in when I feel like it. I don't know. But I will be covering transits. So, if you want to get more in-depth stuff about what's happening with transits, you could definitely watch my YouTube because I'll cover them. New full moons, retrogrades, and all that. And I'll go by sign. I'm going to take my time, though. But I'm definitely going to give myself a buffer of time, right? So you won't be like, dang, I'm still waiting for this. Like, it'll be already done. Trust me. And I'm going to do a Patreon. And on the Patreon, I'm actually going to teach the basic concepts of astrology and just kind of make it like an encyclopedia because people ask me, and I'm actually going to do it this time. I have the time and the free time. And then this podcast, I'm going to kind of make it about whenever it comes to me and upload. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now I'm done. Thank you so much for listening if you made it this far. And I am very appreciative that I get to practice astrology for a living and I get to share it with everyone. And I get to do this as a life path, journey, whatever you want to call it. If you want to book a reading, you can use my website. You don't need to know your birth time and all that. But that's about it. Thank you and take care.